Today on Outside the Box Reviews, we're taking a look at the NECA Universal Monsters The Mummy accessory set. As you can see, I was just a bit excited and decided to put everything I had mummy related and to pick up some other mummy related items to make a little museum display here for everything. I was very excited that they were coming out with this set. I love having diorama bits, and the sarcophagus from the Diamond Select mummy figure is one of my favorite little things to throw into displays. So I was really excited to see what a modern version of that was going to look like. So let's not waste any more time and jump right into it. So the accessory set basically comes with 3 items here. We have a little cardboard backdrop, we have the sarcophagus, and then we have the outer chest that holds the scroll of, Scroll of Thoth goes into. I will admit that upon opening this, it felt like it might be a little lackluster when you actually get it open. They're cool items here for sure, and I will go into it in more detail, obviously, but I was a bit bummed just because it is basically 2 hollow boxes and then a piece of cardboard. For roughly the price you would pay for... am I about to say roughly the price you'd pay for a normal NECA figure? I think this set retails for about $40, and yeah, sadly, NECA figures are getting close to that price. It is probably still a little on the high end, but yeah, I mean, that makes it worse. It probably should be the price of a normal figure or lower, I think. We'll start off with the most boring of the bunch. It is the backdrop. I forgot to bring measuring tape in here with me, but I would guess this is probably about a foot square. It is basically a tri-fold piece of cardboard. So you can have it relatively flat if it's up against something, but I think it's more meant to kind of curve in these sides to help support everything. It is single-sided. The back is just white, and it comes folded up like this in the packaging, which annoys me in its own right because the packaging is much larger than this. You could have done a trifold that was, this center part essentially being the width of that rather large box that it comes in, but this thing is maybe just slightly too tall to fit in standard NECA packaging. You could have done something much more grandiose with this. I feel like every time NECA's included a backdrop, it's kind of sucked. I go back to like the Falcon or Predator cloaked and stuff like that, where it's just really lame, and this really isn't too much better. Once again, like I said, given the size of the box it came in, you could have done something a lot cooler, but they chose not to. The detail on it is pretty cool. You have these figures, I believe they're like repeating figures going across the top. I assume they're supposed to represent the various gods, because I do see a jackal-headed one, and some bird-headed ones, and I think a snake in there. So that's my assumption. There are hieroglyphics below any of them to kind of, I guess, include stuff. I'm going to take the assumption that this was a movie made in the United States in the 30s. This is all probably just gibberish that's vaguely based on information about Egypt that was available at the time. I don't feel like I'm going to be too far off making that assumption. Go down a little lower on here, and we do have some more figures. It's been a minute since I studied any Egyptian mythology, so I'm not even going to attempt to name the characters that these are, because I'm probably going to be wrong. But they do look pretty cool. However, the bottom part is this large section of pretty much nothing. There's like a bit of wall there at the bottom, and then just a whole lot of nothing going on down here. So I forget if this is something you see specifically in a scene of the movie, but it's a bit boring, and like I said, it's just a bit tiny for what it could have been. They could have done a lot more with this, and if it's something that you are technically paying for in this set, it just feels like a ripoff. Next up, we have the box. So at the beginning of the movie, when they're at the camp and the scroll gets read that brings Imhotep back to life, there are essentially 3 boxes. There is a large rotting wooden chest that kind of gets ripped away, revealing this box inside of it. Then inside this is the box that we got with the mummy figure itself, and then inside that is the scroll. This is really nicely detailed. It's mostly gold. There's some kind of bluish, oxidized copper looking details throughout it, giving it some age. We have the seal here on the front, which is what they break to get into it when they're opening up this box. Same kind of detail basically goes around to the side of it. On the back, we have not the full seal, but kind of the blank oval on the top. I believe you do actually see this in the film when they're lifting the lid off the box. As it kind of comes into frame, you see that little detail on the back. I saw one review where somebody was trying to put that inside the ones on the front, and I don't think that's how that's supposed to go. I don't think it will sit properly if you do that. Not much difference on the other side. Just some copyright info there on the bottom. The lid does open. It just kind of pops off the top there. Nothing really to see on the inside of the upper lid. The seal stays with the bottom of the box. And then I did go ahead and put the other box inside here just as an example. It's not a tight fit, so it comes in and out pretty easily. Not a lot of detail there inside either, just kind of a, metallic paint job going on. So this is a very light piece, which I think is what makes it feel like it may not be as nice of an item as you'd want it to. And it's a piece that gets very little screen time. Honestly, this box here that came with the original figure doesn't get a whole lot of screen time either, but it is more of a story point than this larger box. But I think NECA maybe was unsure what to include with this thing. I do kind of wish they would have put in like one of the snakes that they're putting with the mummy Michelangelo. Like that would have been cool. I feel like there's other little things you could have included. I mean, this is nice. I'm glad we got it. It's just a little less than exciting in terms of just a prop choice, I guess. And then last but not least, the piece that I think everyone is going to buy this for, the sarcophagus. This is really nice. Once again, very lightweight plastic. But the detailing on it is top notch. You can see the sculpting even kind of has the likeness of Karloff's face there on the front. His headdress looks really good. The gold is a very vibrant gold. The blue is kind of a, not quite metallic blue, but it fits for like an Egyptian look. The kind of precious stones or metals or whatever they would use to achieve that look on their stuff. It mimics fairly well. You can see all the really clean painted lines on there, which I'm assuming was not the easiest task in the world, but it does look really good. It's weird because I'm used to looking at a head sculpt and turning it and there not being a whole lot on the side, but we do have, the whole rest of that part of the box. It's pretty clean. Things line up all right across the seam between the lid and the rest of it. You can also see there's a little bit of like wear and tear added onto it. I believe that is intentional weathering, so it looks pretty good. I like especially that it's towards the bottom too, like, kind of where it might get dinged up a little more. I'll just show this the one time. The whole back is uniformly this kind of brownish color, so nothing really exciting going on there. And then you can see the detailing there on the other side. If we go down a little more to about his arm chest level, we can see it kind of has some wings going off to the side, a scaly kind of pattern going throughout. As you go into the front, a little more weathering there on the chest, kind of a necklace detail and some, I don't even know what that is, going across his shoulders, just some ornamentation. Got the hands crossed over his chest, and that essentially continues over to the other side as well. Going down a little more, we have some hieroglyphics going down right below the seam. This blue scales kind of turn into these red chevrons. We have some symbols going down the front middle of the sarcophagus. We also see that those blues kind of give way to the reds as well here on the front. And then similar idea going on the other side. I do believe that the hieroglyphics on the sides are mirrored from one to the other. And then down at the bottom, we kind of have some gold trim at the very bottom. We have it kicking out to that foot shape. Basically the end of that row of hieroglyphics in the middle, capped off. And then same idea going on here on the side. So this thing is really nicely detailed on the outside, and then we can pop it open. Pops open pretty simply, just a little lip inside there. And of course we can have our Karloff mummy figure resting inside. He looks pretty darn good in there. It fits him well, scaled nicely. If we go down a little bit, we can see he actually has a little platform that he stands on to keep him aligned inside the sarcophagus, which is nice. So we have the lid here on the left. I really like the painted wood detail they did on the lid there. It's a nice touch. There's a lot of little bits here on the inside, honestly, that I'm really happy about. So that looks really nice. Not a whole lot going on the inner seams, but overall, it is nicely detailed for what it has to be. But the lower part is my favorite of the bunch. We kind of have a stone texture going on in the interior. And then around the rim here, we actually do have the hieroglyphics, the spells or whatever they are that they do mention in the film. So those kind of go up around the corner there. We have them going across the top. And then right here on the inside where they show it in the film, they are scratched away because those are the ones that I think that were supposed to provide passage to the afterlife. And they were scratched away so that Imhotep would basically be condemned in both this world and the next. And they actually included that detail. I was honestly assuming they would not have that going on here, and I'm very happy that they chose to add that in and make sure that was represented, because that's an important part of the plot. So I'm really digging that. I forgot to show it off before, but there's nothing really happening on the bottom of the sarcophagus. Except I think some clay I had stuck to the front of it. Oops. So this is designed so it could equally sit like this, laying down, or up on its base like you see it at the base camp in the movie. So either way you want to display it, you're good there. Honestly, one of the pieces I was most excited to compare here was the new NECA version versus the older Universal Select, Diamond Select version, whatever you want to call it. And NECA definitely did a great job capturing what was in the movie. These sarcophaguses are both based off of the same scene, but they are massively different in terms of detail, which actually I love because I could display both of them together and they could be two separate people buried because they really don't look that much alike. Looking back at screenshots, I think NECA has done a very good job capturing what was in the film, but I still do like what Diamond did with theirs. It's much less stable standing like this. Actually, when I put it up here, it fell immediately. Mostly because it doesn't have the kind of toe section here at the bottom. The details on the face are very different. You can see NECA has the arm with a very thin bracelet. There's a much more exaggerated one here. The section with the hieroglyphics going down the middle. You could see places where they were trying to do kind of similar things. Like you have these three squiggles on both and this kind of like chevron shape on both. But there's more variety going on with NECA's, whereas it looks like they kind of repeated the same thing here and then did a couple like the dog or wolf or whatever it is and like a bird or something down here that kind of show up differently on this one. From the side, there is a massive difference because NECA continued on the detail all the way through, whereas Diamond basically had a stone box with a ornate lid on it. The Diamond one is also very heavy. It's a very thick plastic, almost kind of resiny feeling, though I'm pretty sure it's plastic. And it is one of the advantages they have is that it feels like a more premium item. NECA's looks better, but Diamond's feels more expensive. And Diamond's was probably about half the price. But you know, like the economy's kind of had some time since then. Actually, I just checked the copyrights. The Diamond version is exactly 10 years older than the NECA version. That's kind of interesting. So these are the inside of the lids. Obviously, once again, Diamond went with a very different look, a more kind of cracked stone look. Not terrible. The paint's a little lacking with these big gold swooshes going throughout it. There's also, while NECA kind of has this little seam going around the edge, and the same with their box as well, for it to plug together, Diamond basically had this raised section in the middle that plugged into the exterior. I feel like NECA's makes a much more positive connection when you plug them together, whereas Diamond's kind of always feels like it might fall off with a slight breeze. And then here's the inside. I'm using the Diamond Mummy that came with the sarcophagus because their other one was barely articulated, and then the more articulated version was way too tall to fit in this thing. So this is the only one you could really use with the sarcophagus. You can see the interior detail is different. Diamond doesn't really have much of anything, just kind of a stone-colored background with some seam lines in the plastic even. So NECA's is definitely above and beyond. You also have a lot more posability options with the NECA Mummy, but it looks like they would both fit into each other's sarcophagus without too much issue. There is, as I mentioned, a kind of step here on the NECA one, but if you look, the Diamond one doesn't really start having room for the figure to stand until about that point either, and then the tops are roughly in line with one another. So I was going to throw in just a Frankenstein's monster figure as a comparison, but hey, let's compare accessory sets with what we're going to be getting here shortly. Here is the Diamond Frankenstein lab table with NECA's Frankenstein figure, compared height-wise to this sarcophagus. And I guess maybe worthwhile bringing the box in for a scale comparison as well. It all fits with this size thing. I don't think we have to go too crazy with size comparisons. The figure is really more important than the accessories in terms of scale, but just to give you a rough idea. And then there's the monster next to the sarcophagus. So while he is taller than the Karloff mummy, that step actually kind of puts them more or less at the same height. So that step is roughly the thickness of the Frankenstein's monster's boot soles. That's interesting detail. Overall, I really like this set. I think the sarcophagus is beautifully detailed. The chest is decent as well. The backdrop I'm kind of meh on. I don't feel like you get a ton for the price point. I do wish there would have been a bit more going on here just to give you more bang for your buck. But it is really nice. I definitely will be using at least the two main items in my display. And I mean, honestly, I'm just really excited to be able to put together this little setup here. I think it looks pretty cool. Granted, this isn't going to be anything permanent because it takes up way too much room. And, you know, my display cases are a little janky looking. But I had fun doing this. I had fun setting this all up and kind of making my own little Egyptian museum out of everything. So I am going to recommend this set. There are a couple more sets in the pipeline. We should be getting the Frankenstein's monster set set here very shortly. That one isn't too much different from what Diamond gave us either. It's the same lab table that we got with the initial deluxe Frankenstein's monster release. Looks nicer, probably very similar to this where it's an upgrade over that old one. And then some other little odds and ends. But the one I'm really looking forward to, which we haven't even gotten the figure for yet, would be the Dracula one. The Dracula I think is going to be the game changer for all this NECA stuff because it's the one thing Diamond never really got a good figure of because they never got Lugosi's likeness. So I think that's going to be like the real pivotal moment in this line. And one I'm very much looking forward to. But yeah, definitely a good set. A bit pricey. I could see why some people may not enjoy this, but I'm really happy about it. So that's it for this video. I will see you all next time. Later.